It's time for tea, day 3. We are going to be adding some more detail to the tea and also bringing those leaves across. The first thing that we want to do is add an inset. So create a rectangle inside your tea that is about the same thickness or same height as this bottom rectangle. That will just help with the consistency of your letter overall. Once you have that in there, we already have that visual mental image of the way that our shadow on the inset would go. If you want to sketch that in now, you can do that. Otherwise, you can leave that until the end. I'd like to sketch it in and just add a bit of shadow, because sometimes if I leave something to the end, just like when I go down to the basement, I completely forget about it or why I was down there. So I don't want to forget about why I drew these lines in. You might want to just give it a quick shadow. Just like with the eye, you also want to add your exterior shadow. Make sure that all of your diagonal lines coming off of your letter are at the same angle, and then the length of your shadow box is also the same. It's time for us to add the leaves. Whenever you add an element that might be overlapping part of your letter, you want to make sure that you do it in an area where it won't confuse what the letter says. So for instance, if you have a C or a G and you add your leaf right here on either the G or the C, it's going to confuse that letter. Your viewer won't know if they should be looking to read that as a C or if they're reading it as a G. If it's a cob of corn or a gob of corn, it would mean two totally different things. Make sure you add any element like that onto an area of your tea where it won't confuse the viewer. And thankfully, a T is a pretty easy letter to add something like that onto. I would suggest adding it somewhere around the body of the T here. It won't confuse the legibility by perhaps covering up one section or the other, and it still will create a nice flow pattern through the page. We're just going to draw some really simple leaves. You can draw ones that just have, the basic pointed leaf shape, and imagine that they're blowing through. So I like to draw a bit of a guideline for the direction that the leaves will blow. The really important part when you're adding any element, and if it is one of those trickier letters like a C or a G, would be that you could tuck those elements in behind so that those portions of the letter are still easily visible. Let's draw in a few leaves that will go on top and then a few others that will tuck behind. That will also help to give even more dimension to our piece. Once you've sketched in your leaves, go through and erase any portions of the tea that might be showing through where they shouldn't be, so that you have nice clean leaves. And then you can even go through and give this a quick erase so that next day we can add some color.